Uh, Will the clerk call the roll, please?
Commissioner Aspinall?
Here.
Brickner?
Here.
Mattey?
Here.
Stimson?
Here.
Ware?
Here.
And Vice Chair Trufflet.
Here. Thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda?
None from staff.
Okay.
I move that the agenda be accepted as published.
Second.
It's been moved and supported. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. First item on the agenda is rezoning request 1-2-2023. The location is 29400 Orchard Lake Road. And the proponent is here. Okay. You want to start and tell us what your plans are, what you'd like to do?
Sure. Frank Jamil on behalf of 29400 Orchard Lake Road. The property, if you know the history on it, it's had a history of vacancies for half a decade or so. It's been left in a distressed state with the prior ownership having no interest, other realtors trying to do some kind of development there, and he was just very difficult to work with. So we ended up acquiring the property. Prior to acquiring the property, we met with the city. We gave them our ideas. They supported it. I was actually introduced to the property through the city, the economic development. I think her name's Christia.
Yeah, Christina, yeah.
Yeah. And so I went forward after speaking to the city. I liked the property. We own other properties on Orchard Lake Road. And I'm willing to spend the time, effort, and dollars into making something out of this. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Any questions for proponent from the board? Joe?
Thank you. Right, so this property is just south of the intersection of 13 Mile and Orchard Lake.
Oh, okay.
Not right at the corner, but south of the property at the corner. And
Yeah.
the request is to rezone from B4 to B3, so it's going from one commercial district to another. When we look around, there's B3 zoning to the south, but there's B4 to the north, as well as some office zoning. The eastern side of the lot does bump up against an RA district, that's RA2B, so there's some single-family homes over there. It's about 3/4 of an acre. There is, as the applicant noted, a small multi-tenant commercial building on the site right now. There's some kind of strange access stuff going on too, where there's some parking spaces along the south side of the building to the north that are accessed across this site. Land is designated shopping center type business on the future land use map. Future land use map is intended to show a generalized plan for the future development, and it's not precise in terms of the exact boundaries of each land use category in terms of property lines. It's not part of any special planning area. And then I did provide a little table showing the proposed zoning versus the current zoning. I think really the primary difference when you look at the two zoning districts is that the B3 district, which is the requested district, has a much smaller front setback than the B4 district, which is the current district. There's a couple little nonconformities on there at present. It's the front yard open space and the south side setback. Setback nonconformity wouldn't be changed with the rezoning. Nonconforming front yard open space will be changed. B3 district has a smaller front setback, but also requires more open space. So new development's not going to be, not proposed at present, so there's no concept plan, but wanted to make you aware of that. We have our items to consider for zoning map amendment. One is the proposed zoning consistent with the master plan. Master plan designates this site and its neighbors to the south as shopping center type business. There's non-center type business and small office to the north on the future land use map. Current zoning is consistent with the master plan. Again, not precise property line boundaries on the future land use map. What other impact would the requested zoning have on public services, utilities, and natural features? So the site would transition from one commercial designation to another. Effect on services and roads is not likely to be significant, if there is any real effect on it. Has the applicant provided evidence that the property cannot be developed or used as zoned? So the property is developed as zoned presently, apart from that non-compliant south side setback in the front yard open space. Is the proposed zoning district and potential land uses compatible with surrounding land uses? The site's bordered by both B4 and B3 parcels, as well as OS office service with residential to the rear. Commercial property across Orchard Lake is B2. Will the proposed zoning place a burden on nearby thoroughfares, and if so, how would this burden compare with the existing zoning district? There's really no difference between the two districts in terms of how much a property this size would burden the nearby thoroughfare. Is there other land currently available for this use? There is certainly land zone B3. Most of the vacant B3 land is in the Grand River and Northwestern Highway corridors. Will development of the site under proposed zoning be able to meet zoning district standards? It does appear that the site could be developed in accordance with the standards of the B3 district. Obviously, it has to be the right use and the right layout, but it can be. Is rezoning the best way to address the request, or could the existing zoning district be amended to add the proposed use as a permitted or special land use? The application is not specific about the type of use the applicant might be contemplating. B4 and B3 both being commercial districts, they of course do have somewhat similar lists of uses, but the list of uses that's available in B3 is more extensive than the list of uses that's permitted in B4. Provided that at the end of the letter. There are also some restrictions on some of the uses that are permitted in B3 that should probably be kept in mind, such as the site abuts a single-family property, so drive-throughs aren't available in that circumstance. But most of the other uses in the B3 district would be. Next question is, has there been a change in circumstances and conditions since adoption of the master plan that would support the proposed change? Development in this area really hasn't changed in a substantial way since the adoption of the last master plan. I think that, we've heard the applicant talk about the vacancy rate and things like that. So those are conditions that can be considered as well. Would granting the request result in the creation of an unplanned spot zone? We have a few support questions for that. Is the rezoning request consistent with the master plan for the area? And I already addressed the future land use map. Is the proposed zoning district a logical extension of an existing zoning district in the area? This rezoning could be perceived as an extension of the B3 district to the north and east, where that gas station on the corner is. Would approving the request grant a special benefit to a property owner or developer? At least in the short term, it appears that very little about the physical development of the property would change. Of course, if they came in with a site plan in the future, we would be reviewing that site plan. And like I said, we did include the list of permitted and special land uses in both districts at the end of the letter. So if you want to do any comparison, that's there for your perusal. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions? Mr. Mandy?
I have a very generic question. Looking at that photo there, we see photos like this all the time. Just what is the standard of accuracy for drawing the lot lines on the aerial photos that we see?
This is actually a great question because we do look at these photos all the time. Typically, they are shifted by a couple of feet.
Yeah,
you know,
maybe,
2-3 feet, you know.
maybe like a 5-foot margin of error.
And
Yeah.
you might get into areas where the shift becomes a little bigger because there are correction points on a map.
I understand that.
But in this case, it's probably about 3 feet off.
There's
something like that.
curvature of the earth and things like that.
Exactly, yes.
I know. Okay, I just thought they were, this is among the most off I have seen.
It's definitely a little misaligned, yeah.
And,
It
and
should
that is
be-
why I ask.
It should be a few feet further north.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Brickner?
Basically, it would make the property more versatile, and since it's next to the B3 anyways, it's not a spot zoning situation, so if there's been problems with the building being vacant in the past because of it might not be as versatile as properties to the north, he's just asking for more uses of this, for the same spot.
Right.
And since he's not, unless he tears the building down, the setback requirements aren't going to be kicking in anyway. If he does decide to move the building around, then he's going to get a much smaller building and push further away from the, well, I don't know if it's going to get pushed further away, but he's got to do something about open space if he does that. So other than that, we're just, if he wants more versatility, that's what he's asking for, I guess. Okay.
Anyone else? This is a public hearing. Does anybody in the public wish to speak to this subject? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Back to the commission. Mr. Mandy.
I'll speak to the last point. By changing the land use, we are in fact allowing development at some time in the future closer to the road. However, I'm not objecting to this particular case because along Orchard Lake, I think that's one of our long-term goals, to move development closer, okay? But, I want everyone to understand that just because he's here saying he's not going to tear the building down and rebuild is not a reason to say, okay.
Anyone else? Mr. Brickner?
Yeah.
I move to recommend to the city council the rezoning request 1-2-2023 dated February 10th, 2023, submitted by Frank Jamil. Did I say that right? Okay. To rezone property located at 29400 Orchard Lake Road, parcel identification number 22-23-11-101-003, Oakland County, Michigan, from B4 Plan General Business District to B3 General Business District, be approved because the rezoning is consistent with the city's master plan for future land use, and the rezoning is consistent with the existing and or future zoning classifications or uses in the area. That's it.
Is there support?
I will second that because it is not spot zoning and because I think it addresses our long-term goals.
Just take a roll call vote or just? Yeah. Okay, roll call vote, please, Cheryl.
Commissioner Aspinall? Support. Brickner?
Yes.
Manti?
Yes.
Stimson?
Yes.
Ware? Yes. Vice Chair Trufflet?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion passes. You'll be moved to the city council agenda. When, Eric? Next month?
There will be public notice requirements, so probably sometime in early May, yeah. First meeting in May, I think we would target.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is amend planning unit development PUD 2-2021, including revised site plan 59-5-2022. The location is 27400 12 Mile. Who's the proponent? Hi, can you come up and just give your name and street address? The street, just your street, not the address.
Sure. Tim Lochran, Robertson Brothers Home, 6905 Telegraph Road in Bloomfield Hills.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I have a presentation if I could bring it up here.
Yeah, see if we can,
One moment.
Sure, thank you. That's it. Thank you much.
Counting and granting.
So hello, again. So tonight, we want to talk about a PUD amendment for the Sarah Fisher site. We're only talking about the residential portion. I'll be honest, in the 20-plus years I have in my career, I think this is the first time I've ever asked for half the density than we already have approved, but that is what we're doing tonight. So I'd like to run through the presentation quickly, and then, of course, answer any questions you have. We have renamed the residential portion the villas at Pebble Creek. The site essentially remains the same as far as the dimensions. It's 30 gross acres, 28 net. It is a PUD, which, if you recall, we did receive approvals. This board had approved us, as well as the city council, along with Uptalis, for skilled nursing facility, and then the portion we're talking about today, the residential. It's about split 50-50, 15 acres of residential, 15 acres of the commercial. The skilled nursing facility would have 100 beds. That hasn't changed. Nothing on the skilled nursing facility has changed, but for maybe just a little shift in the boundary between the two uses. We're proposing 51 homes. Previously approved was 94, so quite a bit of a decrease from what we previously had. And really the reason for that is we've essentially eliminated the townhomes that were located along Inkster, which I think the city had always asked us to do. We were pretty steadfast that we wanted the townhomes on Inkster. Flash forward to interest rates tripling, and that buyer, particularly, as we've noticed in a lot of other communities, was really hard hit by the increase in your interest rates. Just the cost of capital, it really made our townhome struggle. That has changed a little bit. We've seen a little bit of improvement. We still want to move forward with the change that we're proposing tonight. I think they're still going to be up and down for the next, probably year anyway. So we're excited about the change. We think we're going to create a very nice enclave development. It's going to be beautiful. So we're very excited to move forward, hopefully with approval tonight. Again, the plan type, it's all single story, 1,834 square foot ranch. We do want to offer a story and a half option as well, which essentially I think brings it up about 5 feet. It's very negligible. You wouldn't be able to really notice unless you're really looking at it. But that gives the option for buyers to add a couple bedrooms upstairs, which has been pretty popular in some of our communities. Building heights, you can see it here, 30 feet, 2 stories for the skilled nursing. We went from 3 stories on the townhomes. Now everything will be a single story or story and a half. There's your heights, 18 to 20 foot. That's all to the midpoint. So just from a context, I think you're all familiar with the site, basically the northwest corner of Inkster and 12 Mile. That's just an overlay, and you can see you've got the skilled nursing facility, which is on the southern portion of it. Actually, the very southern portion would be a new detention pond to serve the new development. And then you can see how the ranch homes would be laid out on the site. This is what is currently approved. We could go and build this. We're still finalizing some of the terms of the PUD agreement with the city council. We've put that on pause as we've gone through the process of this amendment, so everything kind of has been held on that. I think there are some pretty significant items that we're still working through, particularly with engineering. And those we'll have conversations about that going forward, but there's certainly some things that we think are sort of unfair, really, with the engineering comments. Nonetheless, we put that on hold as we're hopefully can move forward with the site plan amendment. This is what's approved. You've got 64 townhomes along Inkster. Those were double loaded, meaning they're on both sides of a drive aisle. Directly off of Inkster, and then on the western portion, which is to the bottom, and I know that's confusing, it always confuses us. Those would be, it's called single-family homes there, but these are the detached ranch condominiums. They basically, the buyers own their portion of where the building is only. Everything else is common space that an HOA would maintain. So that's what's currently approved. You can see where the skilled nursing facility is located on that. You've got Cheswick to the left, which is the north. This is the new plan. So essentially, it's very, very similar. The skilled nursing facility has not changed. Again, I think we changed that emergency access road that circles the skilled nursing facility, maybe about 5 feet. But other than that, everything is about the same. Parking lots, I think it increased a couple of parking spaces, but everything's about the same on that portion. We did obviously remove the townhomes along Inkster and replace those with detached condominiums. Everything that's butting up against the residential to the west, which is again on the bottom, is essentially pretty much the same, if you will. I wanted to point out Cheswick, and I think you'll hear from some of the neighbors to the west of us. I believe that I think they're happy that we're proposing to remove the townhomes and go also to the detached ranches. One of the comments that we received after comments from fire and from engineering was to have full access onto Cheswick, where we did not have that before. Listen, this is the city. If there's a requirement, we'll abide by it. What we proposed in our submittal, and you'll see in your package, we proposed an emergency vehicle access, an EVA, on Cheswick as to not have a full access. We don't believe it's necessary from a transportation standpoint. And we propose to do grass pavers and those bollards you can see on the left there. That did not go over well with city staff, and they had proposed a full access instead, where we did not have a second full access before. We've thought about, the right side would be maybe something in between. That would be, because they wanted it paved as well. That's a paved 18-foot access with a gate. We're not going to die on that hill, but I do want to say that we are sensitive to what our neighbors would like. They don't want to see anything on Cheswick. Cheswick is a public road. I think you guys know that is a public road. It's a very nice looking road. You can see that's not a photo, but it's photorealistic. But that is what it looks like. And we're proposing, what we're showing there is that you can just kind of see the sunlight shining through there on the left. That's what it would look like. So having the emergency vehicle access would be kind of a less intense disruption to Cheswick. That's what we're proposing. Again, the city is, that's a requirement. We'll abide by it. But we do want to protect our neighbors and work with them as much as possible. So that's why I'm explaining why we did it, submit it with an emergency vehicle access. So this has evolved quite a bit, not just from the approved plan of 94 units, but we started out with 156 townhomes. So we really kind of trickled down. Some of our concerns about putting detached condominiums along Inkster, just because of traffic and, you've got power lines there and that sort of thing. The more we looked at it after realizing the issue with the interest rates, the more we realized we could maybe buffer that. We'll be a little bit lower. That'll give us an opportunity to maybe put some retaining walls and some landscaping up. So we're more comfortable with doing that as compared to what we had before. But you can see the plan certainly has evolved. We're about a third of what we originally came in with. A couple of highlights. These are all for sale, owner occupied. Again, they're all ranch style, meaning there's a master bedroom on the first floor. They're all condominiums, and again, they only own the building itself, and then there's an HOA that would maintain all of the open space. So 50 new taxpayers. We've got some very interesting, I think, open space areas, a central spine, and then it's connected through with sidewalks, so it's walkable, inviting. Some internal amenities. We are reusing some of the historic materials. That was, and I kind of glossed over that because I think you know all about it, but we have worked with the Historic District to get approvals from the Historic District to remove really most of the buildings that are there. But what we're proposing to do is keeping a chapel and making that as part of the skilled nursing facility itself. So that was what was approved to the Historic District. So I don't have a lot of that in my presentation because that's already approved and you've kind of seen that. But just to kind of reiterate that we, as part of our Historic District approval, we would be reusing some of that historic materials. It's a housing option for residents that are underserved. I think this board has told me this, the city council certainly has told me this. I hear this from a lot of places. This type of housing is a real need in this community. You know, we've been looking at areas to put it in Farmington Hills for quite some time. So we're excited about this site. Hopefully there's more opportunities to build a ranch condominium style development. So we're excited about it, and hopefully you guys are as well. And then we've been around a long time, so no more shameless self-promotion there. Just quickly on the project design, that's what the elevations look like, floor plan there. It is all the same plan. We will have 4 distinct elevations, stone, brick, hardy board, so very high-end elements, different color boards that the home buyers can select. So they have it's not going to look cookie cutter by any stretch. There's a lot of different style of elements. We're building this in other communities. I hate talking about other communities, but we're building it in several other communities. And buyers love this plan, love the choices that they can have with selecting the colors and materials. And again, that's the plan there. The Wilmington is the story and a half. It just adds basically stairs up and 2 bedrooms up on top. So that is all I have, but I'm certainly happy to answer any questions, and I know there's probably some members of the public that want to speak as well.
Questions for the proponent? No? Yes.
Obviously, the city and the fire department want an access road to Cheswick. Is there any way they can put something in there that right turns only out of the subdivision? I mean, the problem is that you only have one access point at this point in time, and that's for all the residents in the subdivision. And the only other way you could do it is by going through a parking lot, going through the parking lot with the nursing home center next door, which you had before. So, I mean, is there some reason why you can't get access to Cheswick with a regular road, and then you put a stop sign up there, of course, and you could just make it right turn only so people don't go left?
We would be completely fine with that if the city would again, we're open to suggestions to lessen the impact on Cheswick, but certainly whatever the city requires, we'd have to do. I don't think that's come up necessarily about a right turn only. I think that's something we'd certainly be interested in. I don't think anybody's going to be turning left there anyway, to be honest. There'd be no need to, but you know, it's something that we can explore with engineering if they're willing to. Certainly don't want to slow down the process.
Well, the problem that you have is if you try to put you can't put another exit out onto Inkster because you'll run into problems how far the driveways are from each other.
Yeah.
You'd have to use an existing driveway that's there, and the only other way you can do that is by going through the parking lot of the nursing home. Either that or you go out to Cheswick, so you have enough ingress egress for not only the residents, but for the police and fire to get there.
Yeah, and we've explored, obviously, the connections through, and we did have it before with that road that now kind of loops through, because we didn't have that looped road. You can see here, didn't loop before to the townhomes. There's no way to logistically maneuver that without having a huge amount of asphalt for the turning ability for the fire trucks. It's not something we're interested at all, connecting to the skilled nursing facility. And it just doesn't work from grading and from maneuverability with the fire department. So we did, what I'm saying is we explored that quite a bit. Which you can't really see it on here. We're gonna have a lot more buffering than that even shows. It's important to us to kind of block the skilled nursing facility. This is an enclave. This will be a high-end enclave development. So we're not interested in connecting there, nor is it really conducive to do that. So that does leave Cheswick. You know, we did reduce the number of units, and we didn't have a full access before, so it was kind of a surprise comment to us. That's why we proposed just an emergency access on Cheswick. But again, we're willing to work with the city and with the neighborhood to come up with a solution that works, as long as it doesn't delay our timeline.
Thank you.
Joe?
So you've worked on developments like this many times?
Yes,
And so you've worked with many cities?
correct.
And do most cities have fire trucks that don't have reverse?
Don't have reverse. Gotcha.
What I mean is this a common requirement that for those 6 homes you would have to build a thing because it is less efficient for them I'm asking how common it is.
Yeah, most cities have, and I think Farmington Hills has the same requirement. Most cities have a requirement that anything over 30 units requires a second access. It's not necessarily a second full access. And I think that's where the discrepancy is from what we're proposing and what the city's requiring. It's that second full access. So we were fine with having an emergency access off of Cheswick because of we're over 30 units. But then having the full access is not something that, I don't know if that's typical for 51. I don't know if there's an ordinance that says you need a full access at X number of units. I'm sure there is, but I'm sure it's more than 51.
I ask in the sense that Farmington Hills competes with other communities to have developers like you come in. And I'm asking whether, if you wanted to express an opinion, that this makes us it makes us less competitive, or it doesn't make us less competitive.
That's a tricky question.
You could say no comment.
I'll say
Or you
no,
could
no
change
comment.
the question and answer another
Sure.
question.
I'll say no
That's what
comment
a
other than what I
politician
said
would do.
before. We're still working out some engineering comments that I think are difficult in this project, yes.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Anyone else have a question? Okay, this is a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing. I'm sorry. What? I'm sorry, Joe. I didn't mean to slight you.
No problem. Right, so, yes, we are looking at a major amendment to an approved plan unit development here. That primarily affects the residential portion of the approved plan. I'm going to jump past all the PUD content at the beginning of the letter and get right into the site plan. So, as the applicant's representative testified just a moment ago, the number of units has come down quite a bit, and the attached units that were previously approved are no longer a part of the plan. It's all these detached units that are owned from the walls in. So just, what does that mean from an ordinance compliance standpoint, and in terms of, what kind of relief they're asking for from our ordinance? So we'll jump to page 7 of our letter, which talks about density. So the applicant's proposing a couple uses. There's a skilled nursing use, which hasn't really changed. And then there's the residential use. So now they're getting these 51 detached single-family units in a 14.1 residential use area, acre residential use area of the plan. The underlying RA1B district requires a minimum lot size of 26,000 square feet, or 1.675 units per acre. So the proposed density in the residential use area of the plan is 3.6 units per acre. So that's where the relief from ordinance standards is coming from. That is, of course, a reduction. And also, if you were to evenly spread those units over the entire site, the acreage of the entire site, you'd be right about the RA1B density. They're just putting it down on one smaller area of the site, because obviously there's some developability issues with the rest of the site. And then, of course, there's this other facility there. They are also seeking some relief from the front setback standard because there's a required 50-foot setback from Inkster Road. They are asking for 30 feet. That is the same setback they were asking for before for the attached units. It's just the detached units now. Looking at other things that are related to the changes here. And there's not a whole lot. There's minor change to tree removal. Very minor changes to lighting. There are some cleanup issues there in terms of the site plan. There is, of course, the access issue. There needs to be some sort of secondary access. Engineering and fire would like that to be a full access. From a planning standpoint, we're we're agnostic as far as where that second access comes from, if it's within the site. I know that they've explained why they didn't do it within the site or to Cheswick. It doesn't really matter to us particularly, but there does have to be a second access. So bottom line is that there are three bits of relief that are sought from zoning ordinance standards. One is to continue permitting that skilled nursing use, which of course is not in the underlying zoning district, and that's of course still proposed, albeit without any changes from the originally approved plan. Permitting detached single-family at the requested density of 3.6 units per acre, and then permitting the reduced front setback along Inkster Road. So do you have any questions for me before we?
Yes, Mr. Manning.
So you were talking about density. And it seems complex with the mix of uses here and the like. But I'm just going to restate what I think you were saying, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. That we have a cluster option in Farmington Hills. This development is protecting a wetland to some extent.
It's staying out of the river.
It's staying
area,
out of the
yeah.
wetland, all right? And so if someone were to come in under our ordinances and say, I'm going to protect the wetland, therefore I would like to invoke the cluster option, it sounded as though you were saying that they could in fact develop more than what they're proposing.
They could develop about this many units.
It's about the
and
same, right?
You just wouldn't have that other facility there.
I heard you say about this many units, but the cluster option as an incentive allows a higher level of development.
You'd arrive in around the same ballpark. of-
Right, you'd still
of units
arrive
per
at around
acre.
this, around the
I thought it
same
was an
number of
extra
units,
10,
yeah.
20% per acre, but I could be wrong. So we can agree that it's at least as much. They could come in and say, hey, I want to invoke the cluster option and this is the reason, and we would most likely have to say, you can do it.
Right, yeah, you just wouldn't have that other facility there. That's the only difference.
Right. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Brichter.
The only thing that bothers me about this, I'm very happy that they're reducing the density. That should make the neighbors thrilled. And that it's all going to be condos as opposed to some multifamily stuff. I mean, what are we going to do about Cheswick? I mean, I understand before, their other plan, which had a higher density, actually had access to Inkster at 3 spots, and now we're only down to 1 spot. And I mean, it doesn't bother me that they have the gate there, but I just don't know if that's going to get past engineering and the fire department. So I don't know what. It is a PUD, we can do what we want to. We can agree to do whatever it is that's best for our community and for the area around it, but that is a little, that's kind of a hard thing to do, and I don't know that I got a decent explanation as to why Cheswick, which is a public road, they can't have access, they shouldn't have access to it.
Mr. Manning?
I don't know who I'm asking this question of, but if you were to put a gate up, would you even need to lock it? In terms of the fire trucks worried about being able to open it, I mean, who cares if somebody opens it?
It's a breakaway.
Oh, it's a breakaway, okay.
Yeah, I mean, typically there's like a Knox box on those gates where the fire department can just pop a key out and open it.
I'm saying, why would you even need that? In this particular case. Who knows who I was asking that question of?
Anything else? Anyone else? Okay. I'm going to open the public hearing. Anybody wants to speak, please come up and give your name and the street that you're on. If you are speaking for yourself. Oh, I'm sorry. Bang. You have 3 minutes. If you're representing a group, you can have 5 minutes.
My name is Scott Griffin. I live in the first house after the detention pond. I'll say aye. I like this development. I like where it's come. I appreciate that to a very small extent, the Planning Commission, to a very large extent, the City Council has listened to the neighborhood and taken our concerns into account, and that it's become what it is today. We love Robertson Brothers. I'm a developer too. I started in the business 40-some years ago, sitting next to the president of Robertson Brothers. We're good friends. We've talked many times about this. We like it. It's great. The concern is Cheswick. So I just have a few questions for you, and just have a few questions. The units 1, 2, 3, 4, and 37 and 38, do you know where the closest, actually you guys probably know, the fire hydrant closest to that? Anybody know, you guys?
When you say units 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, sorry, next to the detention pond, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then across from that drive, the side drive is 37 and 38.
So the 6 that face that road?
Yes,
that
6 on that
would
side.
lead to Cheswick.
Do you know where the closest fire hydrant is that the fire truck would hook up to?
That hasn't been linked.
Okay, that's okay, not a big deal. Do you all know that the fire truck, before their reverse gear doesn't work, I think somebody joked, we joke about that too. Before they don't like to go backwards very far, I get that. It's 150 feet they can go in. Does anybody know how far it is down that drive to get to the last house where the fire truck would sit? Because obviously the fire truck doesn't want to sit in front of a burning house,
Well,
right? So they're off a little bit. So those lots are, let's say 55 feet wide. So that's 150 feet in. So what is the overage that they're having to go here? Is it 5 feet, 8 feet, 10 feet? And is there, do you understand what I'm saying or no?
Not really.
So the fire truck has to go down that drive to service those houses if there's a fire. So if the fire code, I believe, or the requirement is that if they have to go far more than 150 feet, then they don't like to back up.
Right.
Somebody made the joke about they don't have reverse gear. We make that joke all the time, but I get not wanting to back a fire truck up more than 150 feet. But if they went 150 feet down that drive, it would service all of those houses. And if someone is saying in planning or engineering or the fire department that they have to go further, how much further is it? 5 feet, 7 feet? Does anybody know? And if it is 5 or 10 feet, is there any other development in the history of Farmington Hills that required that access for 5 or 10 feet?
Mr. Manning, you want to respond?
I was just going to say probably, but unfortunately.
I doubt it. I would, if you said probably, I'd ask you to point it out, which one it is.
Scott, your time is up. Did you want to hit more points?
So I have a question for the gentleman.
Okay.
What would you like to see right there where it intersects with,
So I have a number of questions just to make you guys think, which I hope I'm doing. One of the questions is how many, I was at a ZBA meeting last week. I would ask you to consider a variance here on this requirement, but it's a PUD. You don't need a variance.
it's
You can
not
do
an
whatever you want.
ordinance. It's not an ordinance.
It's not a requirement of the
Variance on an
zoning ordinance.
It's a recommendation.
It's,
There's too many conversations.
So my point is, if you're giving them a setback variance, or because it's a PUD, and you're giving them a density and a use and all these other considerations, which we don't mind, we like it, we don't mind, why can't you give them a
so the
consideration
question
for
to you,
this thing?
sir, is what do you want to see?
We don't want to see the cut onto,
You don't want to see the
onto
cut.
Cheswick. And it's not just a public road, it's the entrance that every single homeowner in Hickory Oaks bought their house because of that entrance drive. Every single one. We could have everyone come in here. They'll all be at the city council meeting. Everybody bought it because of that drive. So now you're going to make it a residential street like everywhere else in the city. And we appreciate that it's a non-income producing asset right now for the city. It's charitable, so it doesn't bring any money. And now it's going to be, I can't remember, 15 million SEV approximately?
This is going.
I think that's what
beyond-
it was on the chart.
This is beyond the scope of what we.
Okay,
address.
so is Hickory Oaks, almost to the dime, the same, but we've been paying taxes for over 20 years, and we should be given some consideration here. If you really, 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 really need it, I get why they don't want to hook up to the back of the parking lot because they just don't want that view. Even though if you look at it, the view's not that bad. I would ask on their behalf for the equivalent of a variance. And again, it's a PUD, you don't have to do a variance, you can do whatever you want. But we just don't see the
Scott,
need
I've
for it.
given you a lot of time.
I appreciate it. I
And
really
I'm getting
appreciate it.
pressure from my members up here to get somebody else up.
Hi, my name is Jeff Dawkins. I live at, on Bradmore Court, which is just down the street from Cheswick. I'll keep it real simple. We've, as Scott said, purchased that property, and Cheswick Road and the driveway was part of it. It's been there for 20-plus years. I would like to see, I would vote to keep it the same and not be invasive on Cheswick.
Thank you, Mr. Dawkins.
Question.
Yes.
Anyone can answer this question, but very succinctly for me. Cheswick, is it a private road or a public road?
It's a public road.
Okay, thank you.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Terry Weems. I also live in the Hickory Oak subdivision. I am here because I am also concerned about access from Cheswick. As was previously mentioned, I am one of the 100% of homeowners that purchased in that neighborhood because of that entrance. It's a very nice entrance, very windy. We maintain that entrance. We planted over 60 trees that are now mature there to get rid of all of that landscaping, or a big chunk of it. It would be huge. That would allow, in order to allow a fire truck down there. I think that's a mistake. I'm also informed that there will be a requirement to put some subdivision, identification in that area as well, which also seems kind of odd because at the very corner of Inkster and Cheswick is our branding for our subdivision. So to have like a mini subdivision sign for a different subdivision within our subdivision just doesn't make sense and definitely impacts our property values. Again, that entrance contributes to the luxury of our homeowner experience. We maintain that property and have for the past 20 years. My husband is a licensed builder and really struggles with understanding how a fire truck could actually even access in that tight turn. The street actually winds considerably all the way down the street. The biggest concern that I actually still have as a school board person with my hat on, there is a bus stop at the corner of Inkster and Cheswick, and there's already a whole lot of traffic coming down Inkster Road. I'm very concerned about kids walking up and down Cheswick that has no sidewalks and no lighting. And what usually happens in the morning when it's dark is cars park up along that. You'll have cars that are parked with their hazard lights from Inkster and Cheswick all the way down to where that proposed entrance is. I think that the previous plan made more sense. There were access points. I am not in favor at all of any access point from Cheswick. It just doesn't make sense. I think the developers in the room have developed some alternatives, some viable alternatives to that, which haven't been considered. And I think everyone could probably come together to think about what could be best for the developers, best for the residents that currently live there, and best for the city. That's just my perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Weems.
I have a question.
Okay.
You want a sidewalk on Cheswick?
No.
I thought you said you did. Thank you.
No, I'm saying there are no sidewalks on
Okay.
Cheswick right now. Thank you.
While someone's coming up, I'll just say that I asked that question because if you wanted a sidewalk while that property's being developed, it could have been put in as part of the PUD by these developers. That's why I asked.
It was built so they could build a subdivision.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Scott Lawrence. I also live in Hickory Oak subdivision on Broadmoor Court. I'd just like to echo what everyone said. I like everyone else in our subdivision, when we purchased that house, it was for the drive, it's set back. You don't even know that there's a neighborhood back there. Also, too, to repeat what Terry said in the morning, in addition to that drive being curvy, there's also quite a bit of change in elevation. So if you're going to be now all of a sudden potentially routing cars on that, it is going to create a safety issue for the children, and then as well as people who like to walk around the neighborhood and walk out to get out as far as for walking. So that is another safety concern. I think the developer has been very good as far as working to get where we are now. And then someone commented as far as a number of cuts off of Inkster Road. Currently, there are 5 now. There are 5, and there used to be one off 12 Mile, kind of on the corner but that's since been closed down. It was basically kind of the corner of Inkster and 12 Mile. That's been a number of years since that's been closed. So I would echo what everyone else said in that, especially having a second full access point would very much create a safety issue as well as degrade the property values. And that's it, pending any questions.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening, I'm Jim Flezar, also Hickory Oaks, Bradmore Court. Like my neighbors, when we purchased the house, that was the big awe, coming down Cheswick. And to see that also interrupted and to put a street in there, that is not what we bought our house, why we were attracted to the area. I could echo the concern of the additional traffic that will be going down there. And I also have another question as to if another means of egress needs to happen, that second entry point, why can't you do the same type of thinking that you were going to apply to Cheswick to that open, as you call it, the parking lot, and just have it temporarily, just for emergency, have the bollards come out or a gate? But you could potentially solve it within with just the Inkster access points. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one else, I'll close the public hearing. Back to the, yes.
I have a question. The fire department letter references City Code Chapter 12-11 1C. It says it's not met. Joe, do you know the number when you have to go from 1 access point to 2 access points? Because it looks like Cheswick is at 37 units, and then they're proposing 51, so is it somewhere in the 40 range?
It's 30 something. Cheswick, of course, feeds into a neighborhood that has other accesses within the neighborhood. There's more than one way
Where
to
does
get
that
in
happen?
there.
I don't
It's,
see that.
well, so once you get into the neighborhood, Cheswick feeds into Bradmore Court, and Bradmore Court then takes you up to Weymouth Court, which takes you to Harwich, which that you can get out of the neighborhood that way too. It's kind of a long and winding road, but you can get out of there. So it's not like there's only one access into the subdivision back there.
It doesn't reflect on any of these maps, the 2 access points for Cheswick. Do you guys have 2 access points in your sub?
Yeah, you can come,
Okay.
right, exactly.
Sorry, it's not showing on these maps that we have.
You can come in the back, basically. So yeah, there are 2 points of access to
Gotcha.
that subdivision. It's a bit of a winding trek to come in the back.
It's a bit of a journey, but it's there.
Yep.
Any other questions? Looking for a motion.
Not standing up in line here, are we? All right.
Go ahead and do it.
I got it. I move to recommend to City Council that the application to amend PUD 2021, including site plan 959-5-2022, dated February 22nd, 2023, submitted by Optalis Group, be approved because the proposed amendment is consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the master plan and applicable provisions of the plan unit development option in section 34-3.20 zoning ordinance, subject to modification of zoning ordinance requirements as indicated on the proposed plan. Further modifications of zoning ordinance requirements as follows. And I don't have anything to follow. Under the following conditions, and they would be, we'll leave this up to council to make their determination that we were dealing with also the nursing home too, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Whole
So
plan, yes. It's still part of the plan, yeah.
that the developer be given relief to allow skilled nursing, which is not permitted in the underlying district. That the developer be given relief because the amount of density exceeds the underlying permitted density and requires relief from the ordinance standards, which in this case, we will allow 51 detached single-family homes. Let's see, there'd be relief sought of the 30 proposed, required is 50-foot front setbacks, that'd be allowed to be 30 feet. And there was, let's see. It must be confirmed that all fixtures meet the full cut-off requirements of the ordinance. Fixtures W1 and W2 appear to be decorative in nature. Light output and compliance with cut-off standards is not clear. They have to clarify that. And the residential portion of the plan is accessed by only one driveway with a stub connection to Chestwick. That was an emergency access gate and surface. And we're asking that be allowed to have the access gate on Chestwick.
So is that, through the chair to the maker of the motion, you're suggesting that the applicant's proposal of the bollards and the temporary access?
That won't fly, meets against city code.
I mean, it's a recommendation, so I guess.
No, I'm talking about the gate as opposed to that other thing they were talking about.
So full access but a gate.
Yeah, full access with a gate that can be entered by the fire and police departments.
Okay, so that's the.
What I would say is that the planning commission does not have to be specific about the location of the second access. If they're able to work it out that the second access is from somewhere else, you could leave it open so that as long as you get a second access, your condition will be met.
Right. If the developer can't come up with a second access, that we allow for the gate onto Chestwick as being the second access for police and fire.
Well, so
Don't want that at all.
the second access is not a zoning ordinance
Right,
standard.
we're dealing with issues of fire code.
It's a standard of another ordinance, so we can't as a
But they can
planning
make a
commission-
recommendation.
Yeah, we can't provide relief from that. But you can make a recommendation that one of your conditions of recommending approval is that a second access be provided, as required.
Okay.
And you don't have to specify that
Joe,
it's to Cheswick.
That's fine. I'll just say that the developer make allowance for a second access to the residential portion of the plan as required by ordinance.
Right.
How's that?
Yes, yeah.
Forget about the cutaway gates.
Those are other ordinances, so.
I would just like to correct what I said earlier. Earlier, I said it wasn't an ordinance. What I meant by that was that it was not a zoning ordinance, subject to variance.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay?
Thank you.
That obviously has implications for whether or not you can grant relief.
Right.
From that
Because it's
standard.
not a zoning ordinance, we cannot grant relief.
But you're,
I'm still
But
looking,
we can
Making a
recommend
recommendation.
anything we want to, and I'm going to hold you to that, Tom, in the next.
this is a PUD member, Manti, so.
So the question is, you have to ask.
I'm still looking for a support. The
Oh, I'll
motion.
second that.
Okay,
Okay, and then
yes?
I'd like to make this comment. because it was brought up to us, is through a PUD process, we can do a lot of things, but we can't change certain things. And certain things are safety ordinances. We have no, or engineering requirements. The Planning Commission has no authority to even recommend something that would violate safety ordinances and other requirements. Because it's a PUD, there's a lot of things we can do, but we can't check, we can't agree to do things that are unsafe because engineering department, police department, fire department have say-so on those matters. So it'd be like saying that, well, we don't want to have sewers we don't have sewer connection in our subdivision, so we'll just have, we'll have dumpsters in the back. You can't do that. You can't say you can't leave draining, you can't PUD away where draining for water purposes. We already have a pond there. We can't say get rid of the pond. So it is troublesome to me to not have that second access. I was trying to make it so that it was palatable, but evidently we do have to require a second access because of the number of the homes. And that's something you can't PUD out.
But again, we can leave some flexibility for where that second access
Right.
comes from if there is a possibility that it could come from somewhere else.
And my other comment is this is certainly much better than, their former plan was fine, but this one is much better and it fits much better with the residential neighborhood behind.
Just out of curiosity, can the city council?
So, yeah, so just to be clear, I don't want to belabor the point, you're approving a plan tonight that shows the access, or that you are saying should show the access? So I need to make clear, you are approving an access, okay? So just to be clear, can city council change that through an
That
ordinance
was the
process?
question I asked.
The answer is yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Legislative body.
So in other words, if the answer was no, I was trying to save these people another trip. Okay?
The city council could.
But when it goes to city council, they are the ones that have the authority. We do not have the authority. Right?
Any other discussion? Yes.
My understanding is that this is about access, not necessarily fire trucks. And I recall hearing an explanation. It's not about that little stub and the fire trucks not being able to go backwards. It's if that first house off of Inkster is on fire and there is a fire truck blocking that, other emergency vehicles need to get in, and also all the residents may need to get back out through a second access point. So that, it wasn't necessarily reversing of fire trucks. It's a second access, whether it be for residents, if that first one is blocked by emergency vehicles, or for other emergency vehicles to come in because it's blocked.
That's correct,
Right,
yeah.
so about the ease of reaching the, structure that is in need of the response, right?
Yep.
Exactly.
Or what if a tree falls on the street? Just talking about recent history here in Farmington Hills.
That's one of the reasons for the standard, yeah.
Mr. Richter?
I have a question. I don't know if this is for Tom or for Joe. It's a public street, and if they're public streets, you can always have access to a public street. It's a private road, I understand it. And I also understand when they built it because I was on either planning or council at the time when their subdivision was built. And I can tell you the people who live behind you weren't real happy with your subdivision. So it's just interesting for me to see you guys complaining about the next guy over. And the other comment I'd like to make is this. I've been involved in city planning and council for over 25 years. And they've been trying to build something at that site, which is basically an eyesore and it's full of pollutants. And I'm very happy that someone finally is going to build something there to make the entranceway to our city on Inkster look nicer. So we should be all thankful that they're willing to do this and try to, and I appreciate the subdivision has been working very hard with the developer, and I think this is the closest we've ever gotten where you guys all agreed is something which makes me feel really good. But it's not your property, you can't stop something from going in there, but I'm glad you had your input and it helped to build what you want to see there.
Okay. You ready to vote? Okay. Cheryl, will you call the roll, please?
Okay, before I do that, I just want to, we have 5 conditions, or 4 conditions, and a recommendation. The 4th condition has to do with the lighting, and the first 3 had to do with the relief from the ordinance at the last of the letter. But the recommendation is just, what I have is a generic recommendation that a second access be provided as required. Is that what you said?
I think that's what we finally came up with.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Do I have to, I mean, for your purposes, do I have to actually state which provisions of the ordinance, the PUD?
Not for the amendment.
Okay.
Through the chair, sorry.
Because it's basically the same as the last one.
Exactly.
Okay, I didn't know if I had to put that in.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Aspinall?
Yes.
Brickner?
Yes.
Manti?
Yes.
Stimson?
Yes.
Ware?
Yes.
And Vice Chair Trufflet?
Yes.
And motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is special approval plan 51-3-2023. Location is 24300 Drake Road. The request is the operation of a temporary portable concrete batch plant in a B3 general business. The proponent is Mark Anthony.
Eric is switching back to the other presentation, so.
Good evening. My name is Gary Evangelista. I'm with Mark Anthony Contracting. My address is 4844 Old Plank Road, Milford, Michigan. We are requested to put a special use land permit to set up a temporary concrete batch plant for the city project of Heritage Hills and Westwood Commons reconstruction of the roads in that subdivision. And we use this plant to construct the roads for that those specific projects by the city.
Okay. Is that it? How many times you done this now?
We've been to this facility 3 times already.
Okay,
The land 3 times already. Last year we did Commons Drive at the industrial park. And 2 years before that, we did Halstead Road from 12 Mile to 696. It also has been used in the past by other contractors to construct roads in the city of Farmington Hills.
Okay. Joe?
Okay. Hang on, I opened the wrong letter. Let me open the correct letter. That would be helpful. So, yes, if you've been on the Planning Commission for a while, you'll be familiar with requests for batch plants on this site. This is the 4th in the last 6 or 7 years. This plan is essentially the exact same plan as last year. It was on this site for from around this time of year till about November last year, and they are this year requesting to be on this site from well, their time frame actually was started a few days ago, so obviously they're not going to get up and running by the time of their initial date in their application, but they have October 28th, 2023 as their close date this year with full removal in that same time period. As I said, the proposed layout's extremely similar to a temporary plant approved for the site in 2020 and then again in 2022. Requested hours, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., Monday through Saturday. It's the same as last year. We are talking about a 2-acre site here. There was at one point an approved site plan for a well, actually at 2 points, there were approved site plans for movie theaters on this site. Both of those are expired at this point. So a permanent use would have to come back in with a site plan, even if it was the same theater. When we look around at the directly adjacent properties here, we have B3 and B2 zoning with commercial development on them. Sites accessible from Drake Road. The setbacks that they provided on the plan look like they're drawn from our 2022 review letter. They don't necessarily reflect the actual positions of equipment on site. So that's something we tend to ask for every time a batch plant comes in, is tell us how far from the property lines this thing is going to be when it's set up. It appears that all the setbacks will be met. We put some approximates in here, but nevertheless, those things should be labeled. They've got a parking area in the northern notch of the site there that sticks up to the north, and it's going to be accommodating between 2 and 10 employees each day. They've got counterclockwise circulation through the site. They're closing that cross-access drive that goes to the south with a barricade, just like they did last year. And they're also not touching those trees up in the front along Drake Road. You do have some standards for special approval. They're permitted under section 424C of the zoning ordinance. And then the use itself is temporary construction uses, not accessory to existing uses. So this is a special land use. We do have a public hearing. And if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to address them.
I guess just, sorry. For the folks
I know what Tom's
on
going to say.
Joe's toes, but just a reminder, this is the city's contractor, and we're talking about a batch plant for city projects.
These are subdivision road projects.
2 subdivision road projects.
Right.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Mandy.
So, to summarize, this is basically the same thing we've approved in the past, in the same location for the same people, right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
This is this applicant's third. There have been 2 others in previous years.
Yes.
Mr. Richter?
You were there last year? Yes, sir. Okay, there was somebody else there before you, though, right?
Well,
It might have been Florence Cement.
Yeah, well, there was someone.
It was.
North
So
before.
you were there in 2020 and 2022, if I recall correctly. Right. Prior to that, Florence Cement was there in 19 maybe, and also maybe 17. There have been 2 others in the past.
Because somebody else was over on Northwestern. That wasn't.
That was Florence Cement, and they had the contract last year for the same subdivision. This is the second phase.
Right. Because you guys were there last year and you were working Orchard Lake Road.
Orchard Lake Road and Commerce Drive.
Right, that, you were doing the
Correct.
State stuff.
Correct.
Right, okay. So now you're going to be doing the subdivision, the rest of the subdivision.
Correct.
Which is already torn up, by the way.
Yes, it is.
No, I was just curious. Oh, wait, we should ask this big question. Because you said it correctly, that this is a concrete batch plant.
Correct.
It's not a cement batch plant.
Concrete batch plant.
Which some people confuse the difference. You're not making cement, you're making concrete.
Yes, sir.
And for those who are going to be asking questions shortly.
The cement is brought in by bulkers, containments, and it is.
It's in the metal thing already. It's in the tower.
Yes, and it is pumped into our silos, and it's all contained, it's all seamless, it's all pressurized system.
So people don't understand. So people understand. There's not going to be piles of cement that a bulldozer, like a front loader, is going to be dumping into a conveyor belt.
Correct.
The only thing that's going in there is the aggregate, the sand, and one other mixing material.
And admixtures, yes, which is all self-contained.
And I will tell you, I live about a half a quarter of a mile from the cement batch plant, and I never have heard it. I don't even see the trucks, to tell you the truth.
Yeah,
I walked past it the other day and I said to my wife, I said, oh, they're not making cement this year. And she says, how do you know? I says, I haven't gotten the plans yet. And then after I said that, the plan showed up. So, no, I live nearby and you're part of my walking path, so I know when you're there. But it's not terrible, and we got a letter that said, that called it a cement plant, not a concrete batch plant. That's all I wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Mr. Baker. Any other questions? This is a public hearing. Anybody here from the public, please come up. You have 3 minutes if you're an individual, 5 minutes if you're a representing a group. Please give your name and the street that you live on.
Hi.
My name is Mark Bestnose. I've been a resident here in Farmington Hills, homeowner for 25 years. I love our community. I came here because of the nature and the beauty. You all know about that because you're all, I assume, residents as well. I was shocked one day when I was on that corner and I saw this, forgive me, this hideous monstrosity 7 stories high in the air. I was just dumbfounded. The volume of this machinery hurt my ears. God is my witness. I could not believe that this pollution device was being allowed in our community. And I do not understand why you would consider having this thing on that property. This is going to devalue our neighborhood. The amount of traffic, are these the kind of, leaving the truck, are these the cement trucks that are going to be spinning with concrete in them? Okay, you're going to have a parade of those trucks all day long. That is going to affect the infrastructure of the roads, the buildings in the neighborhood, and I understand that this is one of the largest polluters in American industry. And I'm shocked that this beautiful home that we have here in Farmington Hills, you are going to allow this industrial thing to affect our lives. Honest to God, it rattled my teeth, it shook my bones, and it hurt my ears. You go even 100 yards across the street, and you can feel it. You know it's there, and I could not understand. When it was gone, I said, thank God. That was the most awful thing that I've seen in this community. And I do not understand why you would want to affect us with such a negative impact. There are going to be homes that are going to start selling left and right to get out of that area. That area has enough traffic as it is, and you're going to, and you're going to have a parade of those cement trucks leaving that area, causing damage to the road. I don't understand it. I think this is shameful that you would allow something like this. All due respect, sir. However, it is a hideous monstrosity, and I implore you to vote against this.
Thank you, Mr. Besnos.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to come up? Address?
My name is Jose Garcia. I live in the Muirwood Enclave across the street from Drake. And I was just curious because I've been here for maybe a couple months. So I wanted to see what this was about and what the concrete plant kind of had entailed. Because I heard it caused a lot of pollution and a lot of noise and stuff. So I wanted to get a bit more of an understanding from maybe you.
Our plants are state-of-the-art plants. The latest model we have is, I believe, it's from 2018. It's a dustless cement plant. It doesn't have huge volume generators on it. We are the only loudest thing that you might hear at our plant site, maybe a backup alarm from the loader, and that's during the day. Or you may hear a truck tailgate slam from dumping aggregates. Dust control, we keep dust control at our plant site at all times, enough not to track anything out in the roadway, and if we do clean it up, vacuum truck it up, vacuum sweep it up. All of our aggregates are sprayed with sprinklers. We got to keep them moist to produce a good quality product. And so basically, and we only operate from probably 7 to 5 on an average This project, it only has probably 10 days worth of paving days that we can accomplish on it. Depends on the contractor, prime contractor schedule to complete this work. The duration is intermittent. So we come in, and we're gonna sit there for a couple weeks, or come in for 2 days, and we go wait for the next phase to be built. We come and pave it, and then we're in and out.
Gary, you said 10 days of total work this summer?
Approximately.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
I was wondering, so the purpose of this is to create the cement that you need to repave the roads in the neighborhoods, the concrete, so that you can repave the roads in the neighborhood, yes?
Correct.
So if you didn't use this process, what other processes available to the city, and what would the cost impact be versus this?
We self-produce, that's what we do, we build roads. And we're a competitive bid. So when the city lets out a project, there's other contractors that we bid against the work, and we're competing about to get the work. If we were to use, say, a ready-mix supplier down somewhere on Grand River, for instance, the volume that you need to construct these roads, you wouldn't get that volume unless we control our own destiny, basically. So the projects would take longer, more cost, because we're buying from a supplier that's making money on themselves.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Sure. You mentioned that it'll take about 10 days of work. If that's the case, why is the request for the duration to be 6 months?
Originally, when we bid this project, that was the contractor schedule. The whole project needs to be done between April and October. We didn't have a schedule for them. We got a schedule now. We're expected to be out of there by September.
I'm sorry?
September.
September.
Yes. Originally, it was applied to end of October because we just didn't know. It's basically at the next week, they would like us to start, and then we would finish by September intermittently.
So I'm confused, because if it's 10 days of work,
Yep.
is it time to create the cement?
No, it's to construct the road within the subdivision. There's a process they do. They got to remove the roads, they got put new infrastructure in, and then we come and we just pave them.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
I've asked this every year. When you're not making concrete, you take everything down. You might leave the dirt you might leave the aggregate and the sand there, but the tower's not always there unless you're actually making the concrete.
Correct. Depends on our other projects. If that plant is needed, we'll take it and move it to another site. The aggregate's a little less, not bigger piles. We drive our piles down. We manage and how much comes in and how much goes out.
You move to another location.
Move a location, and then when it's time, we come back.
So when do you expect the first pouring to occur?
Next week.
Sorry?
We have scheduled for next week.
Next week? Really? Oh, right.
So all the streets are opened up in those two subdivisions.
Mr. Manning.
Our sister city, Farmington, Michigan, has had Farmington Road closed for most of the last 6 to 9 months, claiming that they can't get any concrete.
We're done with the concrete.
And and it's closed right now because they say they can't get any concrete. Have you driven by there to see how little more concrete they need?
No, I haven't.
I understand it's probably less than a truck. And you're going to be making concrete in a week. Okay, I'm going to be moving that you can sell it to either for this project or downtown Farmington, because so many Farmington Hills residents are so impacted that I doubt it would extend your period of operation at all.
They're done with concrete. They're putting pavers in.
Can I close the hearing?
No.
They keep claiming it's because they can't get the concrete. That's what they claim.
Might be more people.
The street's done.
Do you have any more comments?
Great. Gary, thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak at the public hearing? Yeah, come on up and give your name and street.
My name is Srinivasan Maharajan. I reside in, I'm in Mayrood Apartments. So this is happening at least for last 6 months to 1 year, I believe. This is not a new one, but we are already impacted. Number one, air pollution. So if you go and see between 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., you'll see a lot of dust, especially when the trucks or the container comes with cement, like it flies all over the road. And then if you remember the time, it's 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., especially the school, the kids going to STEAM school, STEAM Academy, we have to drop them. There is no school bus. So when we drive, it's very hard. It's not visible, especially during the snow and in early morning. So, and plus dust because of the cement containers coming in, right? And second thing is, and it's until 7 p.m. So especially our evening walk, we are all living in apartments. We don't have a backyard or anything. So we have to walk to either the Shawase Park or Drake Park. So this is the main intersection if we have to walk to either of those parks. Literally, you won't believe me, my family stopped walking to the park last summer because of this. And I have like 9-month-old kid and a 6-year-old kid. They can't even breathe with this dust. So I humbly request you to consider some other place where there are no more residents, like some external area which has less population or remote to do this work. Because it's not only Moy Road. If you think about opposite to Moy Road, there is Chatham Hills. There are also apartments. Opposite to Chatham, there is Drakeshire. So these are all apartment communities. And there are thousands and thousands of apartments. And think about the number of people who stopped walking to the parks just because of this. And think about the traffic and the impacts to the school kids going to school in the morning. That's all from my side.
Anything else?
Sir?
Thank you.
Sir?
Sir, sir.
Can I get your spelling of your name?
Mr. Manning?
Thank you.
Just a quick question. You were talking about walks, which I assume are late afternoon walks?
Yes.
All right. What time are you, you're saying they're open till 7? I hear him say that they normally don't operate after 5. When are many people out walking?
Okay, normal time is between 4 to 8, especially in the summer, because
Yeah.
school kids come back around 3:30.
Yeah.
So it's between 4 to 8. But personally, I have seen trucks, cement trucks coming in around that time.
Well, you know, if they're only going to make deliveries 10 days out of 50, maybe we could make sure they don't open. What you are saying is real. I support pedestrians a lot in this community, and I know that there is an awful lot of walking going on. It is a tradition, like after dinner, to go for a walk, okay? So I will take that to heart. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
This is
you.
all you need, ma'am.
Is there anyone else in the public wish to speak on this topic? Not seeing anyone, I'm going to close the public hearing. Back to the commission.
I have a question.
Okay.
Is there another location to put this? And how did you arrive at this location?
They used it the last several times.
For what I know, we've done a lot of research for the city of Farmington Hills. In order to work in Farmington Hills, we have to facilitate within. I don't know of another piece of property. Everything's pretty much developed all around where you could stick a portable concrete batch plant. There was one over on Northwestern, I believe, that was used last year, and I don't know the outcome of that, if they developed that or not. So this is probably one of the last properties around.
So it's not really related to proximity to where you have to do the work. It's more about empty space that you can set up shop.
Correct.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess just to clarify, Farmington Hills is like a lot of other communities in our area. This concrete can only be used in Farmington Hills.
Or Farmington when we're done.
Yeah.
You haul.
So if Novi needed concrete, it cannot be provided from this facility. And the same thing goes the other way around. Novi is not going to allow concrete to be mixed in Novi and transported to Farmington Hills. So these concrete plants have to be within the confines of Farmington Hills.
Oh, my question, I agree with you. It wasn't the thought that he could put it somewhere outside of Farmington Hills. That would actually be disrespectful to the other communities. But I was thinking or wondering, we currently have a similar setup at OCC, over by OCC. So would that be a place that they can share space with you? Is that an option, an opportunity?
Typically, each facility needs its own space to operate, okay? Because you get intermixed trucks, traffic. What Ajax has over for the freeway work is a huge mass production, oriented production. And the same thing with us, but we're just on a very smaller scale. We do pay the owner rent to use this facility, and I have personally in the past set up in Oakland Community College to pave 12 Mile up here. I'm sorry, Orchard Lake right in front of the building here before. So you make agreements with other landowners and try to get the work done in the city. So, and whenever we bid a job, we're preemptive to look and see where we can do that, because sometimes there's some cities you just can't facilitate that work. So.
You good?
Just one, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I hear the residents, and I understand now that I can actually envision it's the Chatham Apartments and all of the residents down there. So I understand now the location. I'm just trying to think out of the box and see what the art of the possible is. Where suburban Toyota dealership is basically across the street from where I think you're setting up. Or is that the exact place that you're setting?
No. They moved to Hagerty.
Okay, so my question is, suburban Toyota over there, it's empty because they moved down to Hagerty and Grand River. Is that an option? Because what that does for you is it takes you across the street and away from the apartments, and I don't know anything about wind, but maybe don't laugh at me, because I'm being very seriously. I'm very seriously trying to think of ways that get you what you need and get the residents what they need. And I know that where the suburban Toyota dealership was, is now closed, and that should be about diagonal across from where you were. Have you reached out to that landlord to
Those typical areas where it's vacant property, they have the infrastructure, they have the asphalt parking lots, they have the white poles, and the way we operate, there's not enough room, and we will damage the property because we're heavy trucks.
I see.
Okay.
The lot he's on is dirt, it's empty.
Anyone else have a question? No. Great. Yes, Mr. Brickner.
You're also restricted to you have to go south on Drake Road.
Correct. There's no construction traffic allowed past the entrance going northbound.
You have to, so what do you do, take Halstead up?
Yeah, I provided a hall map back at drawing, but basically we'll take right out of Drake Road, go down Grand River to Halstead down to 13 Mile over to Drake, and Drake down to the project site.
Because you can't go up Drake Road now.
Can't go up Farmington either.
And Farmington's closed between 12 and 13. Drake's closed between 11 and 12.
Yeah.
But no, I know your route is south. You don't go north past the apartments. You go south.
No, sir. Yeah. We don't come in from that back way, or we don't come south or north past that entrance. It's all straight to the light.
You're on the east side of the street, not the west side of the street.
Yes, sir.
So when the wind blows, it tends to blow east, not west.
Correct.
Because you're right, you're due south of where I live. because I can walk to where your plant is going to be.
Come on over, we'll give you a tour.
Okay, anything else? Great questions.
Thank you.
Yes, I closed the public hearing, but come on up.
Thank you so much. Just want to make 2 more points there. The cement that spills out stays there, and then when we drive, it can kind of come up every time. It's not just when the truck goes to that area. It's like for 24 hours. Sometimes they sprinkle water on the road to reduce that, but it doesn't happen every day, because I have personally seen that every day. So that's another point I want to make. And it's not only about morning and evening for school drops in the park or walking. Like if you look at the plan, there is shopping area in the corner. So we walk from different apartment communities and just shop there by walking. Now that will also get impacted because of this.
Okay.
Sorry, I should have mentioned this before, but I forgot it.
Thank you.
Thanks for giving the opportunity.
Okay. Yes.
My comment is just, I think that the impact this will cause will be less than what the 696 construction impact will be over the course of time, because of the length of time.
Yeah, Mr. Manning?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I move that special approval plan 51-3-2023 dated 14 March 2023 submitted by Mark Anthony Contracting Incorporated be approved, subject to all provisions of the zoning chapter for the following reasons. 1, use would not be injurious to the district and the environs. The effects of the use would not be contrary to the spirit and intent of the zoning chapter. The use would be compatible with other existing uses in the area. Can I change all this? This is what's typed for us in advance. Strike everything after the following reasons. The effects of the use.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Schultz has questions.
These are the findings for a special land use,
Right, it
Commissioner
gets at the
Manatee, so no,
criteria.
you need
Right.
to, you need to address.
Use would not be injurious to the district and environs. However, I don't want them to operate, take deliveries after 4 o'clock because I believe the deliveries kick up the dust, okay? And the effects of the use would not be contrary to the spirit and intent of the zoning chapter. The use would be compatible with existing uses in the area. The use will not interfere with orderly development of the area. In fact, it seems to be necessary for maintenance. The use will not be detrimental to the safety and convenience of vehicular or pedestrian traffic. We're finding it's not a safety hazard to pedestrians, but it's a nuisance to pedestrians. I also, I'm sorry, you may be entertaining me a bit here, but while it says that while this is supposedly restricted to use on a City of Farmington Hills project, I honestly, supposedly they're only putting pavers down so they don't need it. But if the City of Farmington needs a load of I guess I can't say this.
Cannot do that.
So I actually stopped talking about 30 seconds ago.
Okay.
That's all right. I'm good.
Is there support?
Oh, I actually have a question, but maybe that's not appropriate.
No, you can ask a question.
No, we can do it.
You can ask a question once we have either support or no support.
You're going to support it?
You want to support it?
Sure.
I'll support it so I can ask my question.
Okay, go ahead. You're supporting it.
So I don't understand the use would be compatible with existing uses in the area. The use is construction-based. This is a residential and commercial area.
No, it doesn't. It's a B3.
It's right behind McDonald's. Used to be the
So
parking lot for a car dealership.
So what you're explaining in response to my question is that when you say use, you only mean as far as zoning codes, that's what matters, not the actual intended act.
Right.
I see.
It fits within the zoning use.
The zone,
If
okay.
it wasn't within the zoning use, we couldn't approve it.
Okay, got it.
Any other questions? You have any comments?
Yeah, I guess I understand Commissioner Manti did not require the Farmington language, so that's good. Which, as far as I can tell, leaves the one limitation of the 4 PM, and I guess, you know, this is where whenever
That's only for deliveries.
But things, through the chair,
Yes, of course.
I always cringe when I see these on the agenda because most communities don't put them on the agenda because they're city projects.
We're exempt from.
Don't come here or to any other body, it just happens. So I guess what concerns me about a limitation by the planning commission, not particularly tied to an understanding of how these operate, is the contract with the city, the engineering oversight, the timing of a particular day of a project may just not work. And I just don't know that there's a basis on which the planning commission could just set 4 PM as anything. This is all sort of governed by the city's contract and how its engineers oversight this project.
Mr. Manning?
So my logic, my basis is, I do know that neighborhood. It is very densely developed. It is also very largely, I've seen the demographics, it's very largely Asian. And when it is largely Asian, it is largely, if you will, Indian. And my daughter lived in India for over a year, and she has convinced me that it is a thing of heritage, it is a tradition, that after you eat dinner, you go for a walk. And there are probably thousands of people who live within walking distance of this facility who want to go to a walk for a walk after dinner. And I think we should respect their traditions. That's.
And I guess through the chair, I would suggest respectfully that maybe the maker of the motion encourage the contractor and the city to work around that to the extent they can.
Okay, so this man is our lawyer. So he's telling me what I can legally and not legally do. So sir, I respect you and your community, and so I will have to strike that from my motion. But I will ask the gentleman in charge of the plant to keep this in mind during your operations. I believe it's a real thing. Okay? Thank you.
Any other questions?
You have to, second.
Yes, she seconded.
I know, but you just changed your motion.
Oh,
You have to go, you have to go on to change.
Dropping the 4 o'clock requirement?
Amended, right?
Seconded.
You're not good?
You're okay?
Me? I second it.
Okay.
But you would like to also say,
I would like to also say that the engineering and the contractor need to go back and look at your time, because the fact that it's from 7 AM to 7 PM, people come home from work and that's the last thing they want to be doing is listening to your construction. And I have to put this out there and say, if this was over near our homes and not near apartment buildings, would you care? Because I would, and I know for a fact that this kind of construction does not happen in our subdivisions after 5 o'clock. So give them the same respect that you give the single homeowners.
That isn't always the case.
It's near my home.
It's not always the case, but it is a lot of the times the case.
It's near my home.
I hear you, and I also hear these people say that this has been going on, and you even said several times that this same location has been used over and over and over again. When do they get relief? And they're just asking to respect them in the same manner. So I second it.
As I said, we're waiting for them to build a theater there.
Oh, don't get into that.
Yes.
Oh, that would be nice.
Okay, we're looking for a roll call vote.
Commissioner Aspinall,
Yes.
Brickner,
Yes.
Manti,
Yes.
Stimson,
Yes.
Ware,
Yes. Yes.
and Vice Chair Treflet.
Yes. Motion passes. Next item is the approval of minutes from March 16th.
One issue, my name's spelled wrong on page 2, or page 3.
The
Again?
same way?
Yep, same way.
All right, I will correct that.
I say leave it.
I didn't catch that one.
I've actually been doing a spell check on your name, so I missed it. I need to also make a correction, and that is, every time when the motion says the motion passed by voice vote,
Yeah.
we're going to drop in the word unanimously when it is unanimous. So that'll be for every motion in those minutes.
That makes sense.
Any other additions or corrections? Looking for a motion to approve?
I move to approve the minutes.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No, I didn't think she seconded it. I didn't think.
Yeah, she did.
He got-
I can hear out of this here.
Oh, okay.
That's why you sit on the left of him.
So what happened?
Unanimous aye.
Yes.
We all approved it.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Are we done?
No, he's going to ask for the commissioner
I know.
comments. Commissioner comments?
Waiting. Item number 6 is public comments. Is there any public wishes to speak at this time? Seeing none, I'll close the public comments. Is there any commissioner or staff comments? Yes.
Sure.
Why do we keep seeing these? I understood the OCC one because it wasn't a city project.
Look, historically, they've had a tendency to want to do this, and when I came into the position, I wondered why we're doing it, quite frankly.
Okay.
Just kind of the inertia of the past, but, if the planning commission doesn't want to continue to see these, I think that's a valuable.
I mean, to me, it's, the city's gonna do it whether we approved it or not. They've got concrete that's needed next week.
Right. Yeah, and, we had unexpectedly good weather, for example, this year.
So we're sort of, we're sort of put out in front of the public to take our beatings.
Tortured, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we essentially set these guys back a month too, because they couldn't predict that the weather would be as good as it was. And, this month lead time to.
There's always comments on them, and there's not much we're gonna do on it.
This, if I may.
Of course.
This was a very awkward situation with them saying they're going to do it next week. And if I was a resident, I would be saying, well, shit, there's a huge one at OCC. Why don't you just use that? I thought it was a fairly logical question.
Mr. Manning,
even though the answer.
we're still on YouTube.
Oh, sorry. I thought it was a very logical question, although they are different firms. But, and the same's going to happen next year. There's going to be a big facility, still at OCC, still making concrete. And if there was a way, because that is so isolated, that the city could possibly use some of that or something adjacent to it, and I know, MDOT's going to say, you're not touching our concrete. I know that. I know that, but it's a tough
Well,
situation.
this guy's going to continue to lease to these people because he's not making money otherwise on this property, right?
Right, I mean, the only way it stops is if they develop the property, right?
Yes.
And
Which-
even the
which
OCC
then-
one.
Which we're doing our best at.
Which then puts it squarely back on us. So I hear the question about, should we be the one hearing this? Not if we don't have any real say-so. It's probably not efficient for us to do it. But to me, the more question is, should we have some efficient say-so? And if so, how do we then go and work through that to get it? Because it's not good to say, well, this is just a relic of old. Things should change, but they shouldn't change with blunt cuts. We should think thoroughly about how we are helping create the community that we want to have and we keep talking about developing these
But you need
things.
concrete plans to develop your community.
So as Barry
So-
kept mentioning, there is a movie theater that was supposed to be there. So let's say the movie theater doesn't come, but Susie Q down the road, down the way,
gonna have to
builds
find
something
somewhere else.
else, then they have to find
They're
somewhere
gonna go to
else.
Northwestern Highway.
So can we be proactive, whether that's a us thing, a planning commission thing, or a engineering department? I'm not saying who the right proactive people are. I'm just suggesting that we as leaders in the community and sitting on these boards and city councils and things, try to think proactively, because I feel like we let those residents down. Because they came in with a real problem, and we didn't have anything that we could actually do to help.
You were there earlier.
And we'd have that regardless of where this goes.
Yeah.
The OCC plant had lots of people upset about it.
We did have
A year
some complaints on that
ago,
one.
the Northwestern and 14 Mile Road had people again.
Several
There's
complaints.
always gonna be
Yeah.
people, no matter where it goes, it's gonna be an issue. I mean, it's,
Who doesn't like OCC? I
Well,
pass by there every day.
The biggest comment I want to make is we had it out last year when they were doing it at Northwestern, people were confused between cement and concrete.
Yeah, important distinction with regard to the air quality aspect of it. Very important distinction.
And I think that they get confused too when they says it's gonna be there from April till October. They're assuming it's running every day, 7 to 7, and that's not the
Yes.
case either. The guy said 10 days. In the course of 6 months, he needs 10 days to do his job, which is, in my mind, very negligible, very minimal to what you're gonna be cognizant of seeing.
And I agree with you, which is why I didn't necessarily understand what this gentleman over here was saying, but I couldn't say, it's 10 days, dude, what do you want?
You know, yeah.
But then
It's not 10 days in a row, it's a couple days
Exactly.
here,
Then the
couple
other
days there.
gentleman got up and he kind of gave more context around the trucks going back and forth, kicking up the dust. So that kind of left me with more questions than answers, because I
that's for
really.
those 10 days as well.
But so what's happening, like Barry asked the question, I think you asked the question, are you taking down the tower when you're not working? And he said, yes. So now I'm trying to understand, well, then where's the dust? And the gentleman came up and said, well, the aggregate is left there.
Yeah.
And so that causes dust. So
It-
can they,
it's
can
all
they be,
gravel there.
can they be asked to tamp it down with a tent or
They spray it
something?
with water.
But it's 100 degrees outside, so then
Well,
It
or you
would
put
dry.
out, you
So
could put out
we
calcium
are
chloride.
not engineers. We are not engineers.
Who knows?
But we are servants of the people. And if, as we said, this is a very awkward situation when they're going to open it up the following week. And one of the proposals is that because other communities don't even send it to the planning commission, maybe it shouldn't come here. I don't know the answer to that, but if it doesn't come here, I think it is the type of thing that the public works, the engineers, people should find a way to interact if it no longer comes to us. A way to interact with the public, okay? And I don't think they want to, but I want to add on that, that we had this case, and I don't see an engineer sitting there.
It's true. Yeah.
Okay.
There's not one here tonight. You're right.
Tom, would it help
When
if,
they have something like this that we're supposed to take.
stop. I have a question. Would it help if we made a motion to do what he's saying, to throw it back to staff?
I don't know that you need to make a motion. I think we can report the conversation that we once again had public show up to go through a process that sounds discretionary to everybody, except the people who want you to do the process because they need it. So I think we need to have the conversation and say, look, the planning commission is being put in an awkward position here. We can have that conversation without you going on record to do that. So for example, somebody at the city wants to reach out to the chair, to you, we could all get together and talk about that. But I think I heard a unanimous, why is this here? Should it be coming to us? We can report back on us reporting that to
Well, then if you're gonna
Management.
report it, please make sure you say, it's not just why is it coming here if we can't affect it, it has to be a place that the people can go to be heard. Because that's the only way they're going to get resolution. So it's not about taking it away and then the public can't have a place to say something. And it seems to me, just in saying that, is probably why it's here, because it,
Mr. Brickner?
yeah.
Well, I will ask our esteemed council. The use is allowed, but you need a special use permit, and the group that does the special use permit is the planning commission, correct?
So, not to put too fine a point on it, the city is exempt from its zoning ordinance.
Own ordinances, right?
That's really why other communities just don't come to their planning commission. But when somebody wants to do a batch plant for the state of Michigan, or for the county of Oakland, or for the city of Livonia, they gotta come to you for that, and we're not suggesting you get out from under that. But the city is exempt from all of its rules for zoning.
So last year, this one had to come in front of us because it wasn't for the city. Last year, this was for the county or state.
Road.
And, you know, they make their case, and maybe you do something different, but this is a city subdivision project. We gotta provide them a place to give us the stuff we need for our city roads.
Okay, so that, in this particular case, since it was the city hiring them, they didn't need to come to us. It's when somebody else is doing it.
Eric and Joe said that, you know, I think it's a commendable thing for the city management to want to be transparent and open. But it is difficult when people come expecting to affect the outcome, and if it doesn't really happen, is that fair to invite them to come and do that?
Think that they can have an
Yes.
influence over something that they really don't.
It's fair,
right?
and it's fair this way, because some just want to tell you how they feel, and then they can go on with their day, and even if they have to deal with it. But the second thing that it does is the way your local government responds to you determines how you vote again. So all things play a part, and when people are feeling not heard or not seen, then they will make decisions at the polls later. So it's important for our leadership to be willing to listen, whether again, it comes to us or goes to city council. Maybe it's a place on the agenda for city council so that the people can be heard and have the things explained in the manner that you explained it. But people have a right to be heard.
Anything else? Then how about we
My
adjourn?
question is, when are they gonna start opening up the roads so we can drive around Farmington Hills? Jesus,
Hopefully so.
14 miles.
I have to go to the bathroom.
All right.
Can we close this meeting? You're not Novi, where you can't get anywhere, any direction.
Motion to adjourn? Okay, moving to second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Who made those motions?
Anybody you want.
Yeah.
And who seconded it?